Imagine waking up in the morning with your parents sitting by your bedside, tears streaming down their faces, and not knowing what's wrong. Today I'm going to tell you a story about the worst day of my entire life, but I'm also going to tell you about one of the best times of my life. Every year for Christmas, my family and I go down to Sanibel Island, Florida to visit my grandparents. In the summer of 2009, however, although I was a year younger than everyone, I was invited to play in the 1600 Junior Olympics in Jupiter, Florida. And with Jupiter being 4 hours away from Sanibel, we decided to take a trip down afterwards. When we got there, my grandparents were overjoyed to see us. Both my grandparents had been aging, and my grandpa in particular's health was deteriorating, but that didn't dampen the mood at all. We were still going to do all of our favorite things on Sanibel, like walking along the beach, playing tennis, going swimming. So the first thing I wanted to do when I got there was walk along the beautiful beach of Sanibel, and my grandpa happily told me that he would go with me. Unfortunately, after a little bit of walking, my grandpa collapsed from exhaustion, and I never ran so fast in my life back to get my dad at the place we were staying at to come help down at the beach. And luckily when we got there were people there helping him, and my grandpa was sitting up staring out onto the endless blue sea of the Gulf of Mexico. Not with a big smile on his face, but more of a simple grin. He had found peace on that island and he loved it. And he later told me that he hadn't walked along that beach in years, and he was happy he got to go with me. So after that, the next few days we took easy and just enjoyed being with my grandparents on Sanibel Island. After about 2 days, my grandpa was doing okay, so we decided to go out to dinner. As we were driving out, we were passing by the tennis courts, and I could see a tear come out of my grandpa's eye. He was 89 at the time and had played tennis almost all of his entire life. He sadly turned to us and said that he didn't think he could play the game that he loved the most anymore. And I couldn't relate more. For me, it's baseball. Whether it's now or 20 years from now, at some point I will no longer be able to play the game that I love to do the most. And each of us has that one thing that we love to do the most on this entire planet. And at some point in our life we can no longer do it anymore. That'll tear us apart inside. And my grandpa felt that that time had come for him. And so I looked at him and told him, no, you're going to come play with us this afternoon. And so that afternoon we took him out to play. And he only watched at first. And, well then, I grabbed him a racket. And my one job was to guard him from falling over. Because in his old age, he could easily tip over and crack his head open. But luckily he didn't. And after those first few hits, that smile I saw light up on his face, I will never forget it. It's like he was a little kid again, and he loved it. As our trip wound down, there was one thing that we hadn't done yet, and that was go swimming. My grandpa always called me a swimming buddy, because the only time he could go was when I visited. And the last time we went that day, I'll never forget. For the next day we had to leave, which was always a sad occasion. And sadly, as my grandpa waved goodbye from the second story of his condominium, that would be the last time I would ever see my grandpa alive. A couple months later, my grandpa was hospitalized due to breathing complications. He couldn't speak, but he could still listen. And what do you say to a loved one that you know is about to die? Well, that's between me and my grandpa. On the morning of November 7th, 2009, I woke up to my parents sitting by my bedside, tears streaming down their faces, and they told me that my grandpa had passed away. Not a feeling of sadness or tears came out, but more of a feeling of emptiness came over me. An emptiness that I just lost my best friend. As I lay there in shock, my dad shared with me the last words that my grandpa said on this earth were, and they were to me. He said, "I'll always be with you. Whenever you look up in the sky, I'll be looking back down watching over you. And I'll never miss one of your baseball games." Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about those last words that my grandpa said. And I laid in bed most of that day reminiscing on all the great times that I had with my grandpa, and I realized I had gotten to do all of my grandpa's favorite things with him for the last time. And doing that made it one of the best times of my life. But it didn't end there. Every time I get to step out on a baseball field and do the thing that I love to do the most makes it one of the best times of my life. And I know, whenever I step between those lines, my grandpa is with me. Just as I got to do all of his favorite things with him for the last time, he's with me whenever I'm doing the thing that I love to do the most. And I know, whether I'm on the baseball field or not, whenever I look up into the sky, my grandpa will be staring right back down into my eyes watching over me.